Wow, I got a little bit tense during that speech. The next person we have coming up, you will know him as someone that has made 7 trips to Israel and Palestine. In 2012, this next storyteller spent 3 months living in the West Bank, working with Christian peacemaker teams. During this time, he wrote his first book, Letters from Apartheid Street, a Christian peacemaker in occupied Palestine. This next storyteller speaks Hebrew and Arabic about as well as he can stand still while speaking publicly. So not really that well. Tonight is Michael McRay's 10th story. Let's give it up for our host, Michael McRay.
Okay, this is a first for me. I'm actually going to try and tell a story with only notes and not actually written text. So this is brand new. Here we go. Okay, so she came in my room and she gently shook me awake and said, "Come on, that was Fatima on the phone. The soldiers are patrolling again." So rubbing my eyes, I asked her what time it was, and she said, "It's midnight." And so I rolled out of bed very begrudgingly and went and kind of bundled up in some warm clothes, put on my gray vest and my red hat, and then Kathy and I walked out of the apartment and into the crisp, very cold January air. So Kathy was my teammate with Christian peacemaker teams. Christian peacemaker teams, a little background, is an organization that began in 1985 around the question, what would it look like if Christians devoted the same discipline and self-sacrifice to nonviolent peacemaking that soldiers devote to war? And so CPT sends its trained peacemakers to areas of conflict all around the world. So they're in Colombia, and they're in Iraq, and they're with the First Nations people in Canada. And they have a presence then in the Palestinian city of Hebron in the West Bank, which sits right next to Israel, if you don't know where that is. And the reason they're in Hebron is because it's the largest Palestinian city in the West Bank, but there are 500 to 600 Israeli citizens that they call settlers who are living in that city as well. And so the Israeli government sent 2,000 Israeli soldiers to that city to protect the settlers. And so there's enormous tension between the Palestinians in Hebron and the Israeli settlers and soldiers who are also there. And so the Palestinians asked for CPT, Christian peacemaker teams, to come and be a protective presence and to do solidarity peacemaking with the Palestinians there. So I wanted to learn how to do that. So I went to work with CPT in Hebron. And among the things they do accompaniment work, they do protective presence work, they do documentation of human rights abuses, and they do solidarity presence. And so getting a call to say the soldiers are patrolling was not unusual. In fact, that was one of the things that CPT did. We followed Israeli soldiers as they patrolled the old city to try and in the hopes, I suppose, that the soldiers would be less likely to harass or abuse individuals if they thought there were international eyes on them. And so that wasn't unusual. What was unusual was that it was at midnight, because the soldiers usually did 4 or 5 patrols a day, and the last one was usually at around 6 or 7 p.m. So to get a call at midnight was unusual, and so there was cause for fear. The other reason we had cause for fear, at least I did, was because I'd had some fairly negative encounters with the soldiers up to this point. In fact, just a couple days before this, I had been patrolling, kind of following a soldier through his patrol through the old city, and he had turned and he had pointed his AR-15 at me, and he said, "I want to shoot you through the head with this bullet." And so I was a little bit nervous, because you never know when he's going to pull the trigger. So I didn't exactly know what to expect, except to expect violence and tension. And so Kathy and I walk out of the apartment, and we're walking through the old cobblestone streets of the old city of Hebron. And we see this group of 6 soldiers. They usually went in patrols of 6. And these 6 soldiers are walking through the pitch black old city. Very ill-lit corridor, the main street running through. And they're walking through, kind of just marching through, carrying semi-automatic weapons. Some of them had AR-15, some had M16s. And every once in a while they were kind of lifting and they were pointing their guns up at the windows of these old stone buildings that were houses of Palestinians. They were kind of pointing them along the way. And so Kathy and I kind of held about a 40 to 50 foot distance. So I turned to Kathy at one point and I said, "Okay, what are we supposed to do? Do we call, is there someone we can call? Like, do we call the United Nations? Like, what are we supposed to do? I was pretty new to this. And she said, our job is to de-escalate. I thought, well, how in the hell are we supposed to de-escalate? I mean, what are we, this is incredibly intimidating. These soldiers with their semi-automatic weapons walking through this old city, creating fear in anyone who might look out. Hardly any noise at all except for just the stomp of the boots on the stone. And so I said, what exactly are we supposed to do? And she said, well, let's sing. Come again? Sorry, you want to do what? You want to sing? She's like, yeah, let's sing. I was like, okay, so what exactly are we supposed to sing? She said, well, let's sing freedom songs. Okay, let's sing freedom songs. So about 40 to 50 feet back, we begin to sing We Shall Overcome, followed by I Woke Up This Morning with My Mind Stayed on Freedom. Then we kind of ventured into the realm of the hymn, and so we began to sing Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing. And so here we were, these 6 soldiers walking along with semi-automatic weapons, pointing at these houses, and here come 2 white Americans. Come Thou Fount of Every... Yeah, it was unbelievably weird. But it created this very interesting dynamic where there was this incredibly intimidating presence of the soldiers at 12:30 in the morning, and then these 2 international peacemakers singing hymns. And so the soldiers continued to kind of venture off of the main corridor, which was the only place where there was actually any light, a couple of little lamps along the way. And they were venturing off this into this kind of uncharted space back in these kind of deep alleyways that had no light at all. It was completely black. In fact, it was very hard to even see the soldiers. And so they kept wandering back, and they eventually came to this home. And all the homes in the old city are connected, but they came in front of this one door, and they stopped. And so Kathy and I were about 10 or 15 feet away, it's probably maybe a little bit more, about from here to that table. And we stopped and we kind of leaned against the wall. And the soldiers are just standing outside in front of the door. And then one of them, the leader, radios to the headquarters, and he was asking if they should invade the house. And the reason they almost always give is we're looking for weapons. Now they, to my knowledge, almost never find weapons. But they always get that, we're looking for weapons. And so we're thinking, okay, here we are, 15 feet away from these 6 soldiers who are about to invade a Palestinian home where the family is probably undeniably sleeping. There's probably children. It's going to be terrifying. What are we supposed to do? So I kept thinking, de-escalate, de-escalate, de-escalate. Okay. And so I kind of looked over at Kathy and it's like, I'm going to venture. I'm going to conquer this fear. And I looked out and I saw their armor, and I saw their M16s and their AR-15s, and I thought, I'm going to do this. So I stepped away from the wall, and I looked back at Kathy, and she kind of gave me this weird look like, what are you about to do? And all I had in my mind at that moment were the words of the great American poet R. Kelly. And so into the silence came, I believe I can fly. I believe I can touch the sky. Moment of silence. And then a soldier, I think about it every night and day. I spread my wings and fly away. And after about 4 lines, 4 of the 6 Israeli soldiers are all singing I Believe I Can Fly with me outside of this house in the old city of Hebron. It was the weirdest experience of my life, where we had completely reinterpreted and transformed this space from this dominating, fear-invoking kind of presence to this weird kind of interaction of connection and pop culture that I just was not at all expecting. And I thought, you know what? I've got this. I'm a peace builder. Like, I can make peace. I've got this under control. About 4 minutes later, they invaded the house. So it didn't exactly work as I had hoped. But the interesting thing was, what it did do was that it created a connection between me and the leader of that brigade. Whenever I asked him what his name was, he always insisted I call him Bond, James Bond. And he always called me Johnny, and to this day, I still do not understand why. Thank you.
Did anybody else feel like he got something started that wasn't quite ready to be over? I believe I can fly. I believe I can touch the sky. I think about it every night and day. Spread my wings and fly away. I believe I can soar. I see me running through that open door. I believe I can fly. I believe I can fly. Thank you, Michael. We're going to take a break so I can learn the song a little better. So for about 10 minutes, have some fun at the bar. Take care of our bartenders and our staff. Thank you guys for coming. We have 5 storytellers coming up next. Thank you. I really felt like I wanted to sing more. It could be the him sing. I'm used to you singing songs on stage. That was really good. Thanks. That was the best story you told. Really? Hey, I'm so excited you're doing the stuff.
Oh my God.